We would do that anyway. That's what he did.
If I can have your attention, please. We'll ask everyone to please be seated at this time. We welcome all of you present at the chapel, as well as everyone who's watching remotely for the services of Mrs. Aileen Heller. For those of you present at the chapel, if you have a cell phone with you, please take a moment to turn it into the silent mode or shut it off completely. That would be appreciated. The services will be conducted by Rabbi Jason Fenster from Congregation BJBE in Deerfield.
Sinai harim me'ayin yavo ezri. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian, your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul. Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvavecha me'atava ad olam. God will guard your going out and your coming in now and forever. We're gathered here for a moment that's hard and a moment that is sacred, truly sacred, to bear witness to a story, a life, and a legacy of a woman who sat at the center of a family, 4 generations of family, of love, and of devotion. And whether we're here or joining on the live stream, we're here for something sacred together and to comfort one another in a moment of loss. In moments like this in our tradition, we often turn to Psalms. It's biblical poetry. It speaks of the depth of the human experience. Not to say that anyone has ever felt exactly the way that you're feeling right now, but to give voice and to give language when it can be hard to find the words. In particular, we're accustomed to the 23rd Psalm. We know it. It's the one that speaks of the valley of shadows, of deep, dark shadow. And maybe you sit there right now in a valley. It's okay. It's okay to take time to sit in that dark low place. What I find so beautiful about this poem, about this psalm, is the end. We miss the end sometimes. It tells us that goodness and mercy are following us all the days of our lives. And actually, the Hebrew literally doesn't mean follow, it means chase. That even though we sit in a valley that is dark, we are being chased, pursued by goodness and mercy, by life and legacy running after us, surely wearing very nice shoes. Goodness and mercy are chasing you towards light and memory. For now, we'll sit in the valley and remember that when it's time to get up, that legacy, that memory, the blessings that you received will always be following after you, beckoning you forward. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, bino desher yar bitzeni, al mei menuchot yenahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni v'maglei tzedek, v'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech v'geitz al mavet, lo irara ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishantecha, shivtecha umishantecha, hema yenachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, neged sorerai, dishanta vashemen roshi, kosi revaya, dishanta vashemen roshi, kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai. V'shavti b'veit Adonai. V'shavti b'veit Adonai. Le'orech yamim. We'll read together on the inside of your handout. The 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude and pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage, made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai natan va'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevarach. God has given, and God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. First we say Adonai natan, that God gave a gift with Aileen, with your wife, your mom, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, an aunt, friend. A gift of devotion, of commitment to family, of love. But Adonai lakach, God has taken away. And there aren't words to describe what that means and what that is like. And nonetheless, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach, there is something worthy of blessing. So our job this morning, this week, this month, this year, is to share the blessings, to share the stories. We share them again and again and again. The little ones you've told 1,000 times before, we keep sharing them. And the big stories, the ones that changed your life or set you on a course, we share stories so memory can become a blessing. Begin inviting Leslee to come forward and share a few thoughts. Leslee.
I'm just going to sort of throw some quick random thoughts that have gone through my head past few days and maybe even longer than that. No segue, transition, and then I'm going to yield my time to the the sibling from California. A frequent question an employer may ask during an interview is to name a famous person, dead or alive, you admire. My choice would be Eleanor Roosevelt for the strong first lady she was and all the work she did on human rights. I got my information from the World Book Encyclopedia, and we all had those because Grandma Sadie worked for World Book. For a history refresh, you can now check Wikipedia. But I always thought it should be my mother, who had been presented with a number of chronic health issues since we were children, and many times I thought most people would not have pushed forward to participate in life as she did. I continue to use a statement that was drilled into me growing up when I trained sales reps. It's not what you know that makes you smart, it's knowing where to go and get the information. And at Weber, that's usually me. Paul asked me to mention that his first memory of Mom was on our second date when we were sitting on the front stoop with an atlas from World Book, looking at the stars, and she came out to tell us it was late. One day in junior high, I took my socks off because I was the only one, of course, who could go to school. I couldn't go to school with bare feet. Wouldn't you know it? My mother came to school that day and encountered me as she was walking up the down staircase. So the first thing I did was look at my feet. We never got away with anything. I want to take this opportunity to thank my mother for all her love, her support, and her brisket recipe. Even towards the end, when she wasn't always at home in her head, she never failed to tell me I was dressed so cute and admire my footwear. I love you, Mom. I'm wearing boots today because it's cold, and no, they're not new.
Julie?
I apologize if some of this will be a little repetitious, because as siblings, we did have the same mom. She was very hands-on and no nonsense, didn't let us get away with anything. But I wanted to talk about a little bit of my relationship with her, because I was the active middle child, kind of a tomboy, restless, mischievous. So she took a real interest in what I was doing all the time. She was constantly trying to get me out of the house. She would say, "Julie, don't dray me a cup." Now, I didn't really understand Yiddish, but I knew what it meant, like, don't drive me crazy. So she was always looking for ways to get me out of the house. My grandparents lived just a few blocks away, so she would send me on errands. She'd say, "Julie, here's an envelope. Go give it to Grandma and Grandpa and take your time." And so I did. And then when she ran out of things to send me on errands, she would then say, "Go take tennis lessons." There were tennis courts across from where Sadie and Al lived. So she says, "Take some lessons and then go have a lemonade with Grandma and Grandpa and take your time." So I was out of the house then. And then in the winter, she would take me to acting classes or art classes. And then she came up with one of the best get out of the houses she could do, because we lived across from a bowling alley. And she said, "Julie, go join a bowling league." And that turned out to be really good, because a number of us in the family met their life partners because of Aileen throwing me out of the house to join a bowling league. So people have met their partners, and we're a family of pretty good bowlers. So that was good. Then in middle school, Mom followed me to junior high. And Leslee might remember this. So I was so upset. She became my study hall supervisor. And I was convinced she did this just to keep tabs on me. And as a result, guess who kept getting kicked out of study hall? So I did not behave. This kind of relationship continued with Mom for me the whole years that we were, together, because she was always worried about my antics and was monitoring my activities. She'd often call Ken just to see that I was staying out of trouble and not hurting myself. Little did she know he was encouraging me, so. And I think my mom enjoyed all of my sports and my running around and my craziness because of her so many physical challenges she had from when we were all so little. And that's what she was, such an amazing woman, almost a miracle for people that knew her, because she suffered with so many things, and yet she always seemed to press a reset button. Whether she was recovering from a broken bone when she stepped out of she was the Girl Scout leader, she stepped out of the bus right into a hole, broke her ankle. She might have a surgery or an episode for MS. She always seemed to just bounce back and carry on. It was amazing. When she became a celiac in the early 80s, and nobody knew what that meant, and it was just awful back then. Her and my dad figured out what to eat, and then once again, she pressed her reset button, and she carried on. When she had a broken hip a decade or so ago, she went to rehab and reset once more. And yet, with all of this, she was always part of the family mix. She never gave up. She made trips to California, New Mexico. She managed to make it to all the kids' mitzvahs, graduations, weddings, and she looked good doing so, thanks to Coldwater Creek and Chico's. And they did not pay me to say that. As she became weaker and more confused this past year, she still really knew who we all were. She knew faces. She enjoyed looking at pictures of the family, especially the great-grandkids. And it became apparent, it was so sad, she was no longer going to be able to reset. But however, even though she being the fighter and the lover of footwear, we all know she was, true to form, she would compliment me on all of my shoes and purses every visit, every day, almost every hour sometimes. But then she'd look up at me and say, "Julie, are you behaving yourself and staying out of trouble?" So some things she just never forgot. So, bye, Mom.
Scott?
Make a good transition, Julie. Staying out of trouble was something I didn't do. And usually staying out of trouble was being late to come home. So, Mom always worried. And there's this history, I wrote down like 4 different things. But this is like 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E, and it could be 1Z with it. So, and Dad, you may remember this too, the first time, because you were part of you were really, quite frankly, pissed off at me. But I would never get home on time as a teenager for whatever I was doing. And I just remember getting home on Enfield, 16, 17, and you know that sound, da da da, when I walk in the door. You were awake, she was awake, you yelled at me, I was late for something. But it didn't change. That was 16, 17. When I was, there were numerous times I got home at 1 or 2 in the morning, maybe 3. But one time in courtship with Deb, and I walked in late in Buffalo Grove, and she's standing. The condo. She's not in the condo. She's in the front entryway waiting for me. And there's nothing worse than seeing your mother when you're 24, 20. I was 25, waiting for me, and I'm like, uh-oh, not again. And there were just numerous times during the year. Let me crank it up to 60. I came home 2.5 years ago, went on a whirlwind visiting some friends in Wisconsin and in Rockford, where we had lived for a while, and then visiting a friend in downtown Chicago the next day, and I got home. It wasn't late, but there she was. She called. She was older. She wasn't in the entryway, but she was right of the condo, but she was right inside the front door, and I'm like, come on, Mom, I'm 60. Come on. But this is because she always wanted to make sure that we were okay. She never stopped worrying about us, and that made her so wonderful. So that's number one. Number two, and unfortunately, there's numerous Cub fans in here, and there's a Cub jacket. How dare you bring that into this day? Anyway, but I have a White Sox memory with her. One memory when I was 13 years old. And as you become a big fan of your team, even Cubs, you just live, die, breathe by it. Even your sense of priorities are pretty much screwed up in sports. They are. That's the common code of it. So, from when I was a kid, when I first started following the White Sox, they were losing early. And they lose all the time, on and off streaks. So, but the first year they were really in contention was 1972. I was 13. And they were chasing the Oakland A's and playing games out in Oakland, and in Central Time Zone, those games practically started at midnight. But they went 15 or 16 innings into a contention, in a game which they won, but Mom stayed up with me till 3 a.m. till they won that game. And I'm like, great, we're going to go win the pennant. They lost the next night. We couldn't even stay awake for it. But it was like she stayed up in the excitement of it. I really believe that this is a Cub family that we're in. But I was like one of the few White Sox, and I've converted my wife. She's all White Sox. That's why she's wearing black today, because good people wear black. It's a real theme, and good to see the seagull all wearing black. So anyway, but the fact she was so excited for me, and it's sort of like she really got into it, and I thought, wow, that's just so. It's kind of like I call it a meaningful moment that I missed on here, to put it on here, but other things too. So I remember when. Excuse me, I get emotional, and then I come back. But when Laurel was under 2, she had stayed the night in the condo. You don't remember. But my mom was so excited in the bedroom with the bed from hell in there. But she was spending time with her. But she was so excited to see her. And she loved her grandkids. And like Julie said, she made every trip everywhere. And I almost left this off. On Darrin's graduation, I think I think this was high school graduation. I mean, she really was struggling with EMS at that time, and that was her last trip to Albuquerque. And Julie came out with them, and she had to be there. And this is the thing for me. So, I mean, I got a degree, been successful, mainly because of her with it. And at a certain point, well, she pretty much jump-started me because I was diagnosed as dyslexic. So I almost, went to the wrong address here. Almost went across the street and flipped the numbers. And, so go to somebody else, the wrong funeral, That's with it. And that would never be a good idea to show up at the wrong funeral. Really bad thing. But I would mix up numbers. Was saw was. I can't even tell you today when I get tired, I can still make a mistake like that. It's usually with numbers and contracts in the business I'm in, and then it's like I'm reviewed on that stuff. But one of the things, when I was in high school as a sophomore, my counselor and one of my science teachers, they got together and they said, you know what, with my dyslexia, I'm not going to advance out of high school. Well, I'll graduate high school, but not much farther out. And so she went to fight and put me through training and you could say, and flashcards and everything else. And so, so I got into college, and then, from there I took it on my own. So I got into a Western Illinois directional school, transferred to Northeastern, and then got into a Big Ten school. And I graduated, and then from there, building myself up in media, which I've stayed in the same career since 1980 with it. But I mean, I took over the determination, but she did the fight for the fight. So that's one thing, that's the gift she gave me. And so today, Mom may have passed, but she's in me in the fight. And so, anyway, those are the main points. So, and I'm just going to leave one because I'm getting serious, which why not? But Mom used to always say to me, it's sort of like, if I'm going across the street, why don't you just go across the street? Why do you have to drive to Wakanda and back to get there? She says, you always seem to take the hard route there, but she was being humorous when she would say it. But again, she's just a driving success. So she lives inside of me for this stuff. So miss you, Mom. And thank you all for coming out today to celebrate her life.
Thank you, Scott. It's okay. You can have it. It's fine. It's fine. I'm fine. Don't worry. All right. Aileen was born November 15th, 1930. A Chicagoan through and through. Even though her family would summer in Florida, winter in Chicago, which is a natural decision. A Chicagoan, and in her early life, she had to grow up quickly. And through that process, developed a sense of structure and attention to detail. The example he gave was that as a child, she would take herself to her piano lessons in the city. She learned to take care of herself, to build up the systems and the structures around her to make sure that she had what she needed, that she could have success, and so that you could have what you needed, that you would have the structure to move forward. And those piano lessons in the city paid off. She loved piano, loved music and show tunes and the theater. I found that so, as we were speaking yesterday, I was thinking about this week, this Shabbat, across the world, Jews will read from Parshat Beshalach, which has the Song of the Sea in it. This big, beautiful shir, this poem, this song right in the middle of the Torah. That's the song the Israelites sing as they march from a place that is narrow and confined towards openness and freedom. A song that gives us liturgy and poetry, fitting as we celebrate her life. A song about the kind of people we hope to be. Throughout her life, there were friendships that mattered deeply, lasting all the way from high school. And her Maven's group, a gourmet meal group that she would organize and plan for to bring people together, to celebrate, devoted to one another. Because as a mother, as a parent, as a member of a family, she was supremely devoted. At times critical, but always towards a lens of love and care for each of you. She would volunteer at the PTA and at school, at Girl Scouts. No matter what health issue came up for her or someone in her family, she would always persevere, always building and strategizing for herself and for others to make sure that you had what you needed. Because she wanted to be there, present for all of the major life cycle moments, for graduations and celebrations and weddings. She loved to dance at those weddings. She loved bringing the family together. And even after she was no longer able to be the one to host and to cook, she liked being with you and would say thank you and celebrate that you could make her recipes and carry on that tradition, that which she built, organized for each of you. Her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, doting on you and loving you. Never replacing a single picture in her home, always buying a new frame to add, to remember each stage, to mark each moment. So no matter where each of you were with her. And of all of those relationships that she built and forged, there was one that mattered most. It was Earl. Later in life, Earl the Pearl, a jewel, devoted and loving, caring for each other, always wanting to be together. And when she needed it, you cared for her. With that same patented love, devotion, and commitment. They met sitting across from each other in the cafeteria in high school. She would let him clean the crumbs off of her face. And when they went to the prom in a big group, they went with different people. They left together. And after that, that was it. Married for 71 years. A beautiful relationship. And always wanting to be together. Earl said he never had a guy's night, a boys' night. They was always with couples. He always wanted to be next to his beloved, next to his bride. And she would keep you going. She would sustain you, and you would sustain her. And now here we are, to wonder what's next, and how to carry on this legacy of family, of hard work, structure, and care and support. This song that we will read this Shabbat. After the song ends, Miriam leads the people in a refrain. After this big, beautiful piece, there's a reminder that something of it will continue to last. And our job, your job, is to be like Miriam, to carry the refrain, to hear the song and carry on its memory in the stories that you tell and retell. The Hebrew word for memory, zecher, it doesn't just mean to remember, it also carries the connotation of the meaning to mention, as if to say that memories don't live in our heads or our hearts. Memories live on our lips. They're sung. They're a song that we remember and brings us comfort and joy, laughter, maybe a tear. We tell our stories again and again and again. And when we do, we say, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. The memory of the righteous is a blessing. May Eileen's memory always, always be for blessing. Ask you to rise for the memorial prayer. El male rachamim, shochein b'amromim, hamsei menucha nechona, tachat kanfei ashchina, im kedoshim utorim, kizor harakia mazhirim, et nishmat chayasura, שהלכה לעולמה. בעל הרחמים יסתיריה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בתור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Aileen Heller, who has entered eternity. God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated.
The interment will take place at West Lawn Cemetery. For those of you driving in procession, we will make sure that you will be provided with a magnetic flag for the top of your vehicle, as well as an orange funeral safety sticker, which will be placed inside your windshield on the passenger side. And please keep in mind to use your bright headlights and your emergency flashers while in procession. And due to the pandemic, there will be no formal Shiva, but we do encourage all of you and people online as well to share your personal condolences and stories of Mrs. Heller at ChicagoJewishFunerals.com or on Legacy.com. The following family members will be serving as pallbearers. As I call your name, if you'll please step forward. Paul Fivelson, Ken Saul, Ed Sutherland, and Derek Fivelson. We'll ask everyone to please rise at this time.
For those of you that are going to the cemetery, you should go directly with your cards. We'll ask the immediate family to come grab my grab it. Yeah.
If you need to use the restroom or a couple things. No, it's just one.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a one.
Right. And let me get that. I love this picture. It's nice. Both got such nice smiles. Yeah. That's an oldie but goodie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before color.
Yeah, right.
Oh, no.
Yes, I'm gonna get there's some out there.
No. Oh, no. And then she's up. Oh.